Welcome, affiliated listeners, to another episode of the Affiliated Podcast. And today, guys, I'm talking about something that I think is immensely powerful about how people are really right now, our guest is able to build these large, engaged networks of individuals that are interested on certain things, doing it at a very low cost, keeping them into a huge buyer network, which I think could change tons of different businesses. Whether you're an advertiser making products and you want a place where you could test, optimize, or just a reliable, stable place for traffic, or if you're an affiliate and you want a new traffic channel or a new way to utilize your media buying skills, this is an exciting conversation with somebody that has been immensely successful in the space, and more people need to know about him, and they're about to today. And that is Nate Kennedy. How are you doing, Nate?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to be on and talk into, dive into what we're talking about today.
Yeah, man. Well, that's
So,
good. That's really, really cool stuff. So, just for people to know, Nate has been an OG and really been doing this for a long time. And his specialization is in building newsletters, like really just getting newsletter lists and getting people to opt in some way, shape, or form and read his stuff, so they could go basically go off and sell advertising. But we're not gonna talk about that whole business as a whole. We'll obviously dip our fingers in there. Most importantly, what I talk about today is we met at a conference, and you gave this great talk about this very specific thing, which is the idea of using polls to get people to really engage in emails. But before we jump into that, I want you, if you could just explain to people kind of where you came from, like what's your story? How did you find yourself in this moment being this great, successful online entrepreneur? Because most of the time it's not a normal pathway.
yeah. So back, it started in a cold winter day, January 9th, Naval Hospital. I was born. We don't need to go back that far,
Yeah,
do we?
we're going way back. And yeah, like my father held me in arms and said, one day you're going to make a lot of emails, right?
so, um, So for me, I'll fast forward. I've always had that entrepreneur spirit. I got into the business world I got really into it in 2002, kind of working for someone else and learning real estate. I parlayed that in 2005 or 2004. I had a real estate mentor help me close my first real estate deal. And in 2006, I met this amazing dude, close friend of mine, who taught me a lot about the internet, introduced me to this whole internet world that was starting to take off. And
Nice.
well, it already taken off, frankly, I guess, if you look
Yeah,
back.
yeah. Yeah, I guess by the
And
2000s, the internet was kind of a thing, right?
yeah, but figuring out how to make money online, right? I was like, well, that
Yeah.
sounds great. By this time, I owned a mortgage company, real estate investment side of my business as well. And so I had a bunch of
And
things
this is
going
all
on.
oh 06,
This
oh
is oh
07.
06,
So
then oh 08,
you could tell
good
there's
times in
something
oh 08.
coming that might change the way you think about real estate, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As you know, all know, oh 08 hit. I started getting introduced to internet marketing at the end of oh 06 and oh 07, started dabbling. Oh 08 hit, market tanked. I got caught holding the bag on a few bad deals. Well, they were great deals until they weren't. And then
Right.
so I got caught on a couple of those, and I just started getting back into my real estate days and wholesaling. And then I was like, all right, well, let me figure out how can I package up what I'm doing successfully in real estate and sell it, right? And so I created some products and started selling that stuff. Prior to that, I was just doing affiliate. I was doing affiliate style marketing, right? I didn't own
Mhm.
anything really, and so instead of keeping, the affiliate life, which is a great lifestyle, right? When you're promoting
Yeah.
other people's products, you don't have a lot of the other
Yeah.
challenges that come along with it. So,
Yeah.
so I
It
learned the
just money
whole,
just keeps to fall into your life, right? You're
yeah,
like, hey, this is cool.
yeah. So I was like, man, it's making money's easy. Let me just go complicate it now. But
Yeah. Yeah.
no,
Right.
just so I ended up creating some products, did really well with them, built a couple brands around them, and ended up selling those. And then what's interesting is I had to do it all with paid traffic, and being in the space I was in was kind of unique. Like there's a group of guys that were kind of controlled the traffic and the email and the affiliate promos, and they tried to box out new guys. So I was like, all right, it's never been my style to go play that game. So I ended up building out paid traffic and funnels. I had to figure it out, right? I'm like, I was going to grow and spend money and make money. What can I spend? What can I make? Old Dan Kennedy, right? If you're going to spend a
Yep.
dollar, make two. How many dollars you spending?
Yeah. Yep.
So I ended up that parlayed me actually selling those brands, parlayed me into an agency from 2011 to 20, where I was had a pretty large agency. We worked with hundreds of different local businesses. And then I also worked with some of the largest, actually interesting enough, real estate guru, I guess, per se, in the space, and worked with supplement companies as well. and worked with some people in the health space. So the handful kind of gamut of people we worked with. And then what we did is 2020, I was kind of like, all right, yeah, I need something different. We kind of plateaued because everyone was coming to me. All calls were coming to Nate
Yep.
as opposed to their team, their account reps and all that. Because I also had developed great relationships with these people because I'm just a loyal dude. I'm kind of like, all right,
Yeah.
if we're in it, we're in it. Let's do this, right? So my clients were
It
with me
all
for a
started in
long
that
time.
cold day back in January, right? You knew you would be that guy.
So so that's kind of how I've been. My clients were with me for many years. So it was a very tough decision at this time, but I just realized I was
Mm,
like, to get to where I want to go, I can't continue doing what I'm doing. And
yeah.
so I basically told my clients that, hey, I'm no longer going to be running your accounts and managing these accounts. I'm actually going to go start a new business, but I'll help you transition. And so I helped transition them into other agencies and worked with those agents for a while to make sure everything was up to par and they're good to go. And then I launched my newsletter business.
Nice,
So
nice.
it's
Well,
kind
I'm
of
going to take a
things where
quick pause because I think I love one thing you said there because I think we see this oftentimes in the agency route, right? Where you get stuck in this time value of money exchange, where even if you build up the team, it's really hard to not be the entire agency. I think that's always a struggle, or some agency partners are able to get away from that, or they just love being the agency at all points in time. So I just think that's a really interesting thing that you brought up. And sometimes it's not necessarily a bad thing, but we have a lot of affiliates that think about the agency model sometimes. And it's good to remember that this is where sometimes the pitfalls could come into play. Not that you didn't love that time, but I imagine that must have been pretty exhausting to be getting those calls when you're just trying to like hang out with your family on the weekend. And,
yeah.
all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got to go take care of this client sort of situation. So
Yep.
not the
Well, and
best
that was the
fires to deal
kicker.
with. Yeah.
But that was a product of my own doing, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't blame my clients by any means. I just
Yeah.
realized
No,
like
of course not. Yeah.
I created that environment where they could call me at any time and I would solve it.
Yep. Yep.
So
So then you go to the
it
newsletter stuff. So
go to the
yeah.
newsletter stuff, decide to go all in. I'm like, all right, let's do this. If we're gonna do it, let's do it.
Hmm.
And so we invested a bunch of money to start growing our newsletters, and which is actually kind of an advantage for people on your network. They've already got traffic, they've already got buyers, they've already got subscribers, right? I was
Right.
starting from
Yeah.
scratch.
Yeah. You don't
So
have anything. Just a hope and
I
a
had
dream.
no, yeah, I'm like, I had a blueprint and I did have a
Yeah.
blueprint. So I had launched the newsletter business and we went up and scaled it pretty quick. We got up to, we're a little over 3 million subscribers total at this point. Kind of pared back a little bit on some of the subscriber stuff, but on that side of it, but we ended up growing really, really fast and really big. And it's just basically, we still send millions of emails every day in that business. It's a great business. I've got an amazing team. And that's what we've done. We've kind of, and along the way, which is interesting because I've always kind of loved building things, spending my money,
Hmm.
which for me is more of like, because I'm gonna take the time. I'm figuring things out. I get really into the intricacies of stuff. I like to
Hmm.
figure out how it works. I like to say, why did this convert? Why did this not convert? Which is
Yeah.
probably why I did all the funnel optimization and paid traffic for all my clients, right?
Yeah. Right.
So now I was just focused on my business. I was doing that same thing, and I was able to build some really really cool systems and processes throughout the last 5 years as we built our newsletter business up. So it's
That's crazy.
yeah.
So by how long? So to get to the first million subscribers, how long did it take you from that nothing but a blueprint to building this 3 million subscriber super tower that you have now?
So we got to a million pretty quick in about 18
Okay.
months.
Dang.
So
Okay,
I
that's
feel like
super
that's
fast.
quick.
I feel like
And
that's fast for sure.
and then obviously it's been a little bit longer timeline to get the other 2 million. But email game, right? There's a lot of changes that happen where if you are listening to this and you've been in the email game, you probably back in April 2nd were like, what just happened? why,
Yes.
why is
Yes.
nobody opening? Right.
Yeah.
So Yahoo, Gmail, they all make these changes and adjustments and you just got to adapt to them. So like what we started focusing on was a little bit different process over those years that we learned, right? And make sure that we're
Hmm.
still inboxing. There's a fine line with sending millions of emails versus sending millions of emails that get in the inbox, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a difference there.
Yeah, are you a
So
sender or a deliverer? I think a lot of people like to talk about what they send, not what they deliver, right?
yeah,
So, that will.
that's a great point. I'm going to start saying that.
Okay,
We
good.
deliver 3 million email, million emails a
Yeah,
day.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, cool, man. Well, so obviously, you've had a lot of success in this game, and
Mhm,
I think one of the things that people always like to say that email's dead. We've been hearing it for so long, but it just isn't. It's just how you do email changes. I think strategies die, but email doesn't die. And you imagine that's really what you're saying. It can get challenging as things shift. Now, I can think in the subscriber world, that's got to be even more difficult because how do you keep these people engaged? How do you get them to even say yes in the first place,
mhm.
and keep them maintaining with that? Before we get into the how do you actually keep them on? How do you get them to ever read in the first place? I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that, specifically with you mentioned these poll kind of
Mhm.
ads that you use that I found brilliant and really, really exciting for your opt-ins. I'd love if you could walk through that process.
Yeah, so for us, I like being in passionate crowds with our
Mm-hmm.
newsletters, right? Or people that are
Mm-hmm.
passionate about a certain topic because we leverage these polls.
Yeah.
It's funny because
Well,
I used to call it
before I was gonna say, can you define that passion, like a passion niche, a little bit further? Like, what do you mean when you say that?
yeah. An extreme example,
You bet. I love extreme
politics.
examples. Yeah, there we
Politics,
go.
right? So health is a very
Yeah.
passionate crowd, right? There's a bunch of different segments in health, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's pets, animals. People are, you know,
Yes.
crazy about their animals, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just saw this the other day. My wife ordered something for our dog. It said dog is human. I'm like, no, dog is dog. I'm like,
Oh my
so
gosh, that would be such a good poll. Our dogs equivalent of humans. Is dog human, right?
oh, it would crush. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So if you got a pet supplement out there, there
There
you
you
go.
go.
That would crush.
Uh,
So yeah, I think it's with the pull side of it, what's really important is asking those questions, right? Like you just had, right? Like you want to
mhm.
ask something that's already they're thinking in their head, or it's a debate that's going on in the industry, or real time kind of you can start news hacking, right? And media hacking.
Mhm.
So maybe something big time happens in the news, whatever space you're in, whether it be sports, fitness, politics, animals, right? Something happens and people that are very passionate about that are obviously reading that and understanding and following that
Yeah.
story. So you can create real time polls that are getting them to vote or you're surveying on that, right? So back in the day, these still run more of a survey funnel, right? There's a lot of questions and pre-qualifying people to get them into the kind of like different offers and whatnot.
Mhm.
So I think Ryan Levesque was the big one on that kind of rolled out a really
Yeah.
cool
The
thing on
ask
that years
method.
ago.
Yep.
Yeah, the Ask
Yep.
Method. So I was like, well, Ask Method is really cool, but my life and my goal is to be easy. When I came out of the agency to the newsletter business, I was like, I really want to wake up, send an email once a day, and be done with it. Granted, we
Yeah.
went on and started sending way more than that, but it was
Yeah, you start
that was
delivering
the that
far
was
too many emails.
yeah, that was the initial goal,
Yeah.
and but it was exciting. With that poll, I was like, all right, I don't want to ask a bunch of questions. I just want to get something I know they're super passionate about. So when I follow up with them, they're interested. And so that's exactly what we did.
Well, I don't know
And
what
we
happened to
started
your camera
building.
there. We just have to call out that your camera just zoomed itself super
Oh
intensely.
man.
I don't know if you saw that. Like it was good. It was good dramaticness, but now it's like super tight on your face. It's great.
Yeah, we got to get that fixed, huh? So
Yeah.
let me
Or
let's
not.
see.
Or do you just go with this now very intense
Or we do
frame around your
this.
face? Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
So with the polls, you want to ask super passionate like questions, right?
Hmm. Versus like an
And
ask method, one of the things that complicate complexities around that is I bet it would be hard to adjust because you have so many different variables in a survey, right? To get them to where they want to go versus one question.
Mhm. Yeah, so ask method is 100%. You're kind of taking them down a path, you're decisioning, your branch logic, all that,
Hmm.
and you're running that. Whereas with our poll, it's more of like, we just want to know they're hyper interested in this topic because
Yeah,
we're going to
yeah.
follow up about this topic, right?
Hmm.
And so that's a key thing that works for us. And we've to the tune of, millions of subscribers, right? It's
Well,
worked for us.
It makes a ton of sense. I actually was thinking, and not to I know we're giving lots of plugs to Ryan Levesque, and not to bash the ass method. I think that's great, but for something like this, and especially when they're hot issues, what's one of the number one thing human beings look to do, especially nowadays when a hot issue happens? Identify which side they're on. Right? We
Hmm.
that's why politics makes no sense with it, or made so
Hmm.
much sense is with identity politics. Like everything has a black and white side in someone's mind, and they immediately want to know what side they're on and what that language looks like. Can I talk with the side I'm on? Do I know that I'm in this group? Is this a group that I am? Whether that's the debate of is a hot dog a sandwich, or if it's something more serious like, free Palestine or not, right? Like where those stances are, they might be more inflammatory, but that same idea that people want to categorize themselves. I remember Perry Belcher talked about
Yeah.
human behavior is to categorize, and they always brought up, and one of the things Olivia Polls are always brought up, I don't know if you've seen the studies on tipping where people do poll tips, and they increase the studies that showed increases like 125% the tip rate
Yeah.
when people do something dog or cat, right? And you put it towards tip jars because people want to engage and categorize. So I love that that's what you're looking at with the polls. So like going into as we kind of go through, because how do you guys select like what one to choose? So let's say you probably already have some categories. Hey, I have newsletters, but like when do you say, oh, that's a poll that we should test?
Yeah, so a lot of times we're working off of what I call the media hacking, right? We're looking at what's
Mm-hmm.
going on in that industry, what's a hot topic that people are talking about, or what's a conversation that's been happening for a really long time, right?
Okay.
And you can always start there because if there's if ideally you want to get a poll you can run for a long time, but
Right.
they're so easy to build. It's that once you have the template and you've got it built, it doesn't need to be like you can just duplicate and change the question and connect stuff, right? But
Yeah.
it is so for us, a lot of times our polls, would last. Sometimes it'd be a couple weeks, right? Because it's just that's the topic for a couple weeks. That's heavy hitting, and it drives our lot cost per lead down.
Mm-hmm.
So because it's top of mind for everybody, but at the same time, there's stuff that's in, that people are talking about for a long time and it's ongoing. So you always want to have a mix of those. But if you
Yeah.
always want
Can
something
you
that's going to drive your lead costs down, think of something real time news. It'd be short term, but something that happens in the news, you instantly turn it around that day, push it out, and all of a sudden your lead costs will come down because it's the conversation people are having, right?
right? So putting like a poll that's like, are tariffs good or bad on a political list would be very valuable, the last couple months potentially, but might wane in popularity. Versus like, can you give me an example of one that would be like a conversation people have been having for a long time that you guys have found success with in the past?
Well, I think, and then let's talk about the health and fitness space. It could easily just asking about diets, different types of
Okay.
diets, right? So it
Yeah,
doesn't
that
have
makes
to be
sense.
this or that. It could also be, what do you think is the best diet for, building muscle and losing weight at the same time,
Oh,
right?
nice. And
Because
then
that's
is it a
obviously,
fill in or do you give them like a multiple
no,
choice
yeah,
for
I'd
that?
give them a multiple choice and I would also have other, right?
Gotcha. Okay, good.
So they do vote on at least one. So I would
Yeah.
do that. I mean, that's something that's always debated, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, for
So,
sure.
you know,
How do you select how many options you'd put on that? And then I know these are a lot of questions, but is each
mhm.
option also a different list that they go on? Like the other diet list is going to be more even alternative and aggressive, different types of things, or
Yeah, so you could, right? If you know that they're interested in general health and fitness if they're coming in. But
hmm
yeah, you 100% could tag them based on what they pick, which in one turn in the health space, especially for you guys, you have different offers in all sides of those categories, right?
yeah, yeah.
So you could automate the follow up when they fill that thing out that if they pick paleo, all right, congratulations, welcome to the newsletter. By the way, have you seen this free paleo book or this paleo product,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So you could definitely get pretty granular with it, 100%.
Very cool. Cool. That's awesome. So, but yeah, so that's how you guys can go around and get the poll questions. Like, how often are you guys rolling out new polls? I imagine if the template's so easy, it's pretty. Is it weekly? Like, how frequently?
Yeah, it depends on I look at it more as like what's our lead cost currently,
Yeah,
right? If
gotcha.
we're getting
Okay.
leads coming in
So yeah,
and once that starts
talk
going
a
up,
little
we'll
bit more
change it.
about that. Yeah, talk a little bit more about the
Mhm.
lead cost side and what how you utilize that and why that's really the optimizing driver for this.
Yeah, so for us, there's a couple of things that go along to this. As I used to call it the one-step funnel, and then when I was, breaking this down at the event we were at, I realized it was four steps. But
Yeah. One very big
so
step, one
yeah,
multi-step step.
so a couple of things is the lead cost is going to range, right, depending
Hmm.
on the niche that you're in. But if you're in health and fitness, you're in the political, you're in the pet space, you should be sub $1 per subscriber, right,
Hmm.
and be able to get a lot of subscribers. But the key, and I think one of the biggest keys of what we do with those polls, is it builds engagement. So people can subscribe, but that does not mean they engage in email.
Yeah.
So with that, we want to make sure they open. So on our thank you page, we literally don't give them the results. We just say, hey, congratulations, we're tallying everything up. Go check your email, click the link, and you'll drive you to the results. So what we happen is we take them. People want to be right, right?
Yep. Oh
So
yeah.
you drive them into email. They open the email, they click on it, and in the email, there's a link for them to go to the poll result page. So what I've gotten them to do at this point is I've gotten them to open and I've gotten them to click. And clicking is the most important kind of engagement out of the gate, right?
Hmm.
You want to know that they're listening. So that's kind of the quick breakdown of how we do that as well. So if you guys are thinking about leveraging this, like definitely make sure that you're making them engage beyond
Yeah.
inside their email, right? So that's going to increase that. Because if you're getting, let's say you're getting 75-cent leads, but your, one lead source, you're getting 75-cent leads, but only, 25% are opening or clicking
Hmm.
versus another lead source that you're paying $1 for, but 75% are opening and clicking. It's a huge difference, right?
Yeah, that's a massive difference. Yeah, you're gonna
Yeah.
be chasing those 25% opens forever, and they're probably less likely to be buyers. You're just running into a lot more problems with that lower engagement.
Yeah, and I want people to, because a lot of times in the lead gen world, everyone's focused on that number. Like, what
Hmm.
was my cost, right? What was my
Yeah,
cost per lead? I was like, so we like to look at what's your cost per engaged lead, right?
for cost per age lead. So what? How do you find? Oh,
Engaged.
engage. I thought you said
Yeah.
age. I was like, oh, well, how long? So yeah, for engaged lead. So you're looking at basically what's the cost for a click, like that secondary click, not the click on the opt-in, but afterwards they actually clicked and said, I saw my results. That's what you're really looking at optimizing to.
Correct. Yep.
I love that. We actually had a guest on not too long ago. They were in the high ticket space, and a very similar thing that they changed in their business in terms of their targeting was when they changed it. They were kind of the camp that they're like, I was focusing on cost and optimizing towards the front end, and they shifted to optimizing towards their like somebody that booked a call, and they're like, we really just optimize towards this, and yes, this is down the funnel, but we focused on our cost for that person, and all of a sudden our business changed substantially. So I love that you have that same
Mhm.
thing. If you're really focusing on the right event to optimize around, all of a sudden those costs change in a very substantive way, and a dollar doesn't feel expensive because you know it's what that engaged user is actually going to do.
Yep.
That's great. So fantastic. So let's kind of actually go through that. Now I have some more questions on the process. So they go like, how are you getting somebody from poll or like to even engage in the poll and then being a subscriber and maintaining that 75% open rate and continuing to kind of engage? Like, what's that process look like real fast? Just through like that one,
So,
let's say this, the one click funnel. Let's actually this. Let's walk through the one step funnel that's 4 steps.
well, the one click sounds even easier.
Yeah, even easier, right?
So we might have
The
to
one click
rebrand
multi-step
now.
funnel. Yeah.
So the process is, are you want me to walk through the funnel itself?
Yeah, let's just do kind of the
Like,
funnel, and then we won't
let's review
because
it
we I
again.
don't want to go too much into like the if we could do a very high level, what you guys
Yeah.
just your not methodology, I'd say like your mission statement around engagement because we don't want to go into that too much. But yeah, I'd love to know the funnel, and then we'll talk a little bit like because that was the big focus. Yeah, the full steps. Sorry, that was
Yeah.
way too many words to say yes, but I went there. I went there.
Yeah. So yeah, the goal of the poll is the one step funnel, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so when they fill out the poll, we drop them on a page. We tell them to go check their email. From checking their email, they click. We have a link for them to click to view results, right?
Yep.
So that's the big goal there. And then what we do from there is build out our our follow-up sequence from there, right? So if they came in a certain way, we also want to send a couple emails that are high engaging. So to keep the engagement, a lot of times we will send out another poll on the next email,
Oh, okay,
right?
gotcha. Because they already
So,
shown that they
hey,
like polls, so it makes sense to do it again, right?
yeah, and we want to get them to open and click, right? And
Hmm.
so, and then we're going to follow up with high quality content. So a lot of times what happens is people subscribe and then they get hit with all kinds of promos, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And then from there, so sorry, man, my dog's about to go nuts. I don't know if you can hear
You're
that.
good. You're good. You're good,
All
man.
right. So the from that part of it, from the once they subscribe, we send another poll up, right? And from that poll, we're ideally trying to get them to engage again, and then from there we focus on content.
Hmm.
So the high value content, not the buy or unsubscribe stuff, right? So when a lot of people usually get a subscriber, it's like promo, 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 right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
and
It's
then
like make them
people,
regret that decision as fast as possible, right? Or
yeah,
buy their way out.
and then it becomes, why are my open rates plummeting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if you have a 10% open rate, there's a couple core reasons for that, and one of them is because you're probably just hammering them with
Hmm.
not, buy my stuff, right?
Yep.
So as I talked about previously, the whole mantra back in the day used to be buy, unsubscribe, or die, right? That's the only way
Yep. Yeah.
they handle your list. And now I think
Yep.
people have come wise to it, and people they're trained to consume too, right? So we want to put good
Hmm.
content in front of them that now your brand or your newsletter brand doesn't even have to be your company brand, it can be separate, becomes that authority. And we're putting high value content in there, and it depends. It's kind of a loaded question on that side, because if it's political, we're putting headlines and content. If it's health, we're going to put, depending on the niche, we're going to have cover. There's a couple ways to do it. One could be a story driven email.
Hmm.
It could be headline driven. So
Hmm.
there's a couple of different ways to handle it. It just really kind of depends what outcome you're ultimately looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. But the idea is still that, I love it because Ezra Firestone said at his conference, we're in a trust economy. And I think that's so
Mhm.
true. And what you're seeing happens and what you need to do with email. I think there was a time that it was new enough. And a good example is like early on in the pandemic, I think a lot of that behavior came back, whereas the buy, unsubscribe, die mentality, because there were so many people that were like engaging in this type of content for the first time. So it felt
Mhm.
so new to them, right? There was so much more on the internet than they had been prior. So you almost had a newness factor, similar to what happened way back in the day. But boy, did that fizzle out really fast. And now people are right back to not trusting anything and looking for signals of value and trust. So I love that that's where you're warming it
Mhm.
up and building into. Like, how long, and I know this is hard because I'm sure it changes on each niche and each list, but if you had to give like a generalized benchmark number, like how long do you tend to engage with them or get them to engage in high quality content before you ever let them see something that's going to be a promo or have a sponsorship on or anything?
So that's what's unique about it is I'll usually have some sort of promo in there either way.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And now I don't do it. It's the difference between a dedicated email
Hmm.
of
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
selling verse, hey, we just talked about X. This is a great product, right?
Hmm.
And it's more done as a authority recommendation as opposed to, and also fits. Hey, if you're reading about paleo, like
Hmm.
let's put a paleo style offer sponsorship inside of there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
If,
we
if,
that's how we introduce a lot of content, but then we will also eventually send some dedicated emails down the road as well.
Gotcha. Okay. I love that blend. And I think that's really, really important that a lot of people miss on. So I'm glad you brought that up. Is our most successful emailers all run promos primarily, not through the dedicated as the main source, but exactly what you described. It fits into that authority. So it sounds more like a recommendation, right? Like
Mhm.
it's the difference of, hey, do you care about this? Just blast, blast, sell, sell. And hey, you selected that paleo is the diet you lose the most weight on. I could tell you as somebody that's a huge fitness person, I agree because paleo does this and this. But damn if I don't miss the sugar and the sweets, and I just want a key lime pie, and I miss that on paleo, which is why I have this book, Paleo Sweets, and boom, it kind of sits in there, and it opened up my world for it. You could enjoy the same thing. Click here. way different sales pitch than just, a blast promo out there right after they
Mhm.
subscribe on something. So that's
50%
awesome.
off of,
Yeah, exactly. So no, I love that. That's great. So, well, I think so for kind of circling back, because I think this is an amazing tool. I just want to highlight a couple things. Curious what you see, and then I'll talk a couple things. But one of the big things is for anybody that maybe you have a buyer list, right? You're going out, you're promoting stuff with your own product, but we all know there needs to be another product, and sometimes you're even wanting to optimize your own product internally. Maybe it's not ready yet, and that's hard if you don't have buyers, or if you're going off your already existing buyers, well, they're probably not going to buy that product again. So you sometimes get stuck. But if you built an email list, right, like a subscriber list of emails that was detached from any of your businesses, it feels like it'd be such a great source of data that you would always have control over, and you could monetize beyond your own brands if you wanted to. So, just a really amazing setup. That's why I think this is so powerful. That being said, like, I'm curious. I imagine you're building up these huge subscriber lists, and obviously you're monetizing through promo blends. How could people, if they're interested, and what kind of clients are individuals, say, rent out your list and talk to you about, getting their products on there? That was a
Yeah,
really clunky
so
way to say that, but like, how do people get access to this great data set of all these emails you're building if they don't want to build themselves?
yeah, so if they just want to get in front of them and whatnot, so
Hmm.
one of the ways we monetize is through sponsorships, right? So,
Yeah.
and we do some affiliate stuff. So it's at the end of the day, it's performance based for
Hmm.
us. So we're
Yeah.
looking at, hey, what's converting, what's not, what are we earning, what's it costing us? But
Yep.
to get access to that, like, a lot of different offers that we promote, we're in the finance, health, and tactical space heavily, the
Nice. Okay.
brands that I own.
Ooh, the
And
tactical space. Okay, so we're talking
mhm,
like guns, weapons, self-defense, things like that.
yep, yes.
Fun. Those
Yeah.
must be fun emails to write. I feel like those would be the the ones to start the day with.
Yeah, so we've got like the 2A kind of in the political side, if a lot of our stuff's conservative leaning, right? So you got those kind of three core pieces, right?
Yep.
And so that's what we have there. I've also got some marketing style list as well that are more of a entrepreneurial business opportunity marketers, right? Looking to grow businesses and do different things, right? So
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that's, I mean, it's and me, and I'm not the only one. There's all kinds of publishers like me that own a
Hmm.
bunch of email traffic. So, you know, you can also search people that, depending on what niche you're in, to start reaching out to them. And I'll answer it this way, and more so like, if you're looking to get email traffic and buy sponsorships and sell more of your product, then there's a lot of publishers like myself out there that I would love to talk to you and figure out how you can make it work. I mean, I send millions a day, and we probably, cap out between, depending on what's going on, 50 to 60 million a month. I've got a good friend who's doing a billion a month, right? In
Oh
email.
wow. Yeah.
So I like to think what we're doing is big, but there's always levels to this game.
Right.
And
Every time. Every
so,
time.
yeah, so, and he's crushing. So there's a lot of secret, kind of silent assassins out there that you can connect with.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. So, and then on the flip side, I wanted to actually talk to you because, like, we mentioned some verticals in there that you're working with that we didn't necessarily talk about. But let me ask you this: like, when you look at businesses that you think are just totally missing out by not having either their own subscriber basis or at least tapping into these networks, what are some examples of ones that I would think in particularly should start trying to have this themselves? Like, so if you went back to the days you're like, hey, I didn't just have the email, I had my own product. What would be your dream scenario with your skill sets of, I have email, this is the exact product business that I wish I owned with what I know what I could do with subscribers?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think there's a couple of different markets of that. And in the product side, obviously supplements is big. Anything in the health space is big. And I would recommend that people focus on sending the newsletter becomes an extension to your business. It actually is. I highly recommend building it as its own brand, its own identity,
Hmm.
as opposed
Yeah.
to whatever it is they bought, right? Because now you can promote other people and have other stuff going on without heavy promotion. But more so, cost wise, there's a lot of tools now that make it can become a part of your business that's just driving value consistently. And then when you have a new product to promote or a new product to test, you then can put that in front of them and generate revenue as well. So I think
Mhm.
it's look at it as a value add for your for your buyers, right? So I know a lot of people don't they'll email the buyers, but they don't tack on a newsletter side of it. So you can do both. When they buy, you can have your list where it's all promo based from the brand that they bought from, but then you can also, as a bonus, put them and inside when they buy that product, you're also going to get attached to the Naked Diet newsletter, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I only said that because I own nakeddiet.com. Never done anything with it.
Gotcha. Okay, I was gonna say, I was
So
like, that's a great
maybe think
domain
about
name for
yeah.
Naked Diet. Like, there's so many
So,
things you can play with that. I love that. So that's good. It's good taken there.
yeah, but
Um,
so that's one. And then the creator space is another big one, right?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So the creator industry, if you've got any sort of, if you're a creator with audience and following, and you've got products and newsletters, like mandatory for you, and a
Yeah.
great way to drive grow. You want to grow your own. The biggest thing of this newsletter, I guess, I want to drive home is you own the audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
You own it. So if you run into traffic issues, you run into reach issues based on your organic posting and stuff. If you have them inside your newsletter, you own that audience and can follow up with them. I didn't really get into the
Yeah.
story on what I learned when I learned that value of owning an audience the
Yeah,
hard
yeah.
way.
Tell us about that. Yeah, tell us
But
about it. I love a
so,
hard way
all
story.
right.
That's always good.
So back in it was 2010, September 2nd, I believe was the day. And Google back then, for anyone listening that been around that long, was doing what we got coined as the Google slap. Well, my
Hmm.
business, I was running fully on Google. We had traffic running, spending a bunch of money every day, making a bunch of money every day, and then everyone's accounts got shut down, and my account got shut down. And the gentleman I was working with on at that point
And
came to
wasn't
me and
that
was
on your
like, "Yeah."
wedding day when this happened or something
So,
like that
well, that's
too?
why I remember the date because 2 days later I was getting
Yeah,
married,
this is
and
like, yeah, this is
so
right before. Yeah.
my entire
What everyone
business is
wants to
like,
see, right?
yeah, it's like your account's shut down, your no money's coming in, and so very stressful, right? I'm like, all right, well, I'm getting married in 2 days. I feel like my business just crumbled, and what do I do now? But then I realized I went back to the first thing I ever did in the online world was have a opt-in page and send email and make money with affiliate products. So I was like, oh, I got all of my subscribers. I'm good, right?
Hmm.
So we
Yeah.
didn't have a lot of new buyers coming in, but we had a lot of people that had bought and subscribers that we had that would buy again, right? So
Hmm.
that was a huge saving grace in that process. Now I figured out how to get back on online and play that game, and we were actually interesting enough running on Google back when everyone else was not able to get back on. But
Oh, look at that.
it's one of
Yeah.
those. I just, there's a game, right? You just got to figure out what the game
Hmm.
is and play by those rules, and you're good. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah,
anyways,
exactly,
that's how I
exactly.
learned. I was like, I want to own my audience going forward.
Yeah.
And so since then, I've always had some version of an audience we've owned. And then when we got back into this, that's when we started building a large audience. And I'm a firm
Yeah.
believer that for a creator, a product owner, you guys should own your audience because even like affiliates, man, I love you guys, and the product owners love you. But product owners, affiliates, if you're running traffic, you probably know like a lot of times you have issues with accounts, right?
Hmm.
So another thing is if the affiliate, another huge opportunity for the affiliate is also to list build, right? If they're not doing it,
Yeah.
because a lot of affiliates would just drive to offer direct. Whereas if you can list build too, now you own an audience that's going to help you just continuously grow that revenue that you're making, right? It's not always starting fresh every month.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not that it just gives you so many better resources, right? At the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, you just have a resource that really smooths out, I think, the valleys that go along with affiliate marketing. You know, it just as well as me that paid traffic is such a run up, run down kind of game in this world, and things could change and you could be at the bottom. But, just in that situation, it's a perfect soft landing that you have to extend you the window to learn, where a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people don't have that window and they're stuck reacting. And that's when you make bad decisions in your business, when you're
Mm-hmm.
reacting out of crap, I need to get this going because no money's coming in. Versus when you could have that soft landing, it's a lot easier to maybe play by those rules than find a different way to cheat sometimes because you're just so desperate
Yeah,
to
yeah.
get into the money. So no, I love that. Well, I brought that up too because I think one of the things that you're doing, we talked about, I wanted to plug here because it's just really, really impactful. I think the whole newsletter list is so impactful. Actually, one thing I was going to mention too, especially for creators and even brands, because it also allows you to have a different conversation with your clients. And I think that's
Mhm.
really, really powerful, especially for creators. Talk to them a lot of times. You have what you put out there in, maybe whether it's a buyer list or what you're creating your content, and that's one type of conversation, but people want more from you, or at least some portion of your audience will want more. And the great thing is in that newsletter you can now have that conversation, which opens up so many more marketing and monetization opportunities as well, ascension opportunities, high ticket, even cross promos, different products, all sorts of different avenues. So for that being said, you walk through a process that here's how you can create this yourself. But what if people don't want to do this and they'd like to have a newsletter, they could actually work with your team. Can you talk a little bit more about how you guys are working with the right clients to essentially build out this newsletter business so they could bolt on this incredibly valuable asset that could smooth out all their revenues and really just allow them to continue to grow in a really substantive way in their business? But you're essentially building that for them, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So we come in and something like I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of them don't do a newsletter because they just feel like they don't have the time. They've got
Yeah.
to write a bunch of content. I don't want to do that, right? Like it
Hmm.
just seems cumbersome to them. And so we try and alleviate that. I've got a really good team at doing it. We've gotten really good at it. The team knows how to handle it. So we recently started offering our services about a year ago to help people do it as well.
Nice.
And we've taken our systems, our processes, and everything that we fine tuned in our media company that we spend money on every day, send emails on every day, and built out a division to help people do the same thing. And so for us, we'll come in, we'll get everything built out, we'll design it up. Not to get too catchphrasy with the AI stuff by any means, but we also build a system leveraging AI to make sure that we're dialing in the voice and the messaging and everything that you want to get across, right? So we have a combination of kind of I don't know the best way to say it is like human assisted AI, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah, I get
we're
that.
so we're
Yeah.
leveraging AI and we're using humans
Or
to make
dog
sure that
assisted
it's right.
AI because they're humans
Yeah,
too. We have to remember, dog assisted
yeah,
AI. No.
yeah, yeah,
um,
exactly.
no,
So
that's great. But it
yeah,
allows that idea of it's a acceleration of ease, not necessarily replacement. So it's not subpar. It's just looks accelerated to get there with the human assisted AI. So you guys can build this faster and at scale, making it accessible for people now to not have that excuse of, a newsletter be nice, but damn, that's a lot of work. Now it doesn't
mhm,
have to be. In fact, not only does it not have to be, you're going to probably get some of the best newsletters set up because you're getting an expert like you and your team to set it up for you.
yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So let me ask you, who's the right type of client to engage and go into that service? Like, what's the business need to be like, look like, think like, to make sure they're going to be a good fit for you?
Yeah, so somebody who, if they've got a lot of buyers coming in and they've got revenue coming in the door and they just haven't had time to leverage email properly or add this newsletter component, right? We can take a lot of those past buyers and start warming them up to make sure that they can get, that you can follow up with them as well, right? You've already got an audience, right?
Hmm.
And that's built, and you've got a lead acquisition and or a product that you're already selling. So ideally for us, somebody already, that's, I guess that's another piece of it. They have a product that they're selling,
Yep.
or
Yeah.
if you're an affiliate, you have your string of products that you're selling that you're really, really good at.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Kind of
so,
your core.
yeah. And then we've also, like a creator. That's why creators are great for us because we can help them monetize the traffic they have and bring some insights to help them build better products too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for
So,
sure. The data piece has to be so nice on all of these, right? The data source from the newsletter has to be so big, so big.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah. That's great because awesome, man. Well, that's fantastic. So for those that fit into that realm, and they want to get a hold of you, we could always do it one of two ways. We're always happy to be the screeners for you. You guys could reach out to affiliated at clickbank.com if you want to get a hold of Nate, or if you have an account manager too, reach out to your account manager. If you feel that's a good fit, and we can make sure to get you in contact. We always like to give a little bit of a screen for you, Nate, because we want to make sure we get the right quality, the right folks coming your way, because we know that service matters, and it's going to be very, very impactful. With that though, man, I really appreciate your time. This is so cool. I love making sure people understand that email is not dead, just the way you're doing it is. So if they're doing it the right way with newsletters, this is definitely, I could tell you, I think this is not only the way things are going to continue to go, but it's the way things already are going. These newsletters matter. It's where people gain truth, and you want to be a part of it if you aren't already. So with that, if you have anything else to say to the people before we let you go, I just want to thank you for the time, and hopefully we're going to talk again. But if there's anything else before we let you go.
No, I mean, we're all good. I mean, I greatly appreciate you having me on. I hope our ClickBank crew is able to gain some value from the call. So thank
For
you for
sure.
that, for, let me kind of spread the word on helping them make more money. So
Hell
appreciate it.
yeah. Hell yeah. Love it, man. Well, great. Well, as Thomas would say if he was here, happy scaling. But I like to say until next time, be safe, rate, review, subscribe, do all the things. Most importantly, be well. Have a good one. Bye.